Your savings account balance went up last year, and inflation still robbed you. Both of those things are true at the same time, and most people have no idea how. Here's what's actually happening. You put money in a savings account. The number goes up. You feel responsible, maybe even proud. But what you're not seeing is that while your balance climbed, what that balance can actually buy. That's not a metaphor. That's math. And by the time most people figure it out, the damage is already done. So that's what this video is about. How inflation silently drains your purchasing power. Why your savings account might be making it worse, and what to do instead, with real numbers, not vague advice. Before we get into the fix, you need to understand the problem clearly. Because most people think about inflation wrong, and that misunderstanding is exactly what makes it so effective at taking from you. Most people think inflation means prices go up, and yes, that's part of it. But here's what most people don't realize. Inflation doesn't steal from your wallet. It steals from your future wallet. It devalues the dollars you already have, sitting there, doing nothing, getting smaller in slow motion. Let's run the actual numbers. Say you have $10,000 in a standard savings account earning 0.5% interest annually. After 1 year, you've got $10,050. Your balance went up $50. But if inflation ran at 3% that year, which is close to the long-run US average, the purchasing power of your money actually dropped by about $250 in real terms. You earned $50. You lost $250 of buying power. Net result, you're down $200 in real value. Even though your account shows a higher number, that's what quietly steals means. No alarm goes off, no transaction shows up. Your balance goes up and your wealth goes down. Now stretch that out 10 years. $10,000 sitting in a low-yield account at 4.5% interest against 3% inflation. After a decade, your balance reads around $10,521. But in purchasing power terms, you've got the equivalent of about $7,441 in today's dollars. That's not a rounding error. That's $2,559 gone. Roughly 25 to 30% of your money evaporated without anyone touching your account. That's the 30% the title is talking about, not a scare tactic, just arithmetic. You might be thinking, okay, but isn't some interest better than nothing? And here's where it gets interesting, because the answer is yes, but not the way most people assume. The problem isn't saving money. Saving is good. The problem is where you save it, and the assumption most people make that a savings account is a safe place to park money long term. Here's how to think about it differently. There are two kinds of financial risk. The risk of losing money and the risk of losing purchasing power. Most people obsess over the first one. They keep money in a savings account because it feels safe. The number won't go down. But while they're protecting against the first risk, they're completely ignoring the second one. And the second one is slower, invisible, and arguably worse, because you don't feel it until it's already happened. A savings account for your emergency fund? Correct move. The money needs to be there, liquid, available Thursday if your car breaks on Wednesday. You're not trying to grow that money, you're storing it. But long-term savings, money you won't need for 3, 5, 10 years, kept in a 0.5% savings account is not playing it safe. It's quietly losing the race against inflation every single year. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Daniel. He was genuinely disciplined about money. Not flashy, not reckless, just steady. Daniel spent his late 20s doing what he'd been told. Spend less than you earn. Keep money in savings. Don't take risks. By 35, he had $40,000 in a savings account. He felt ahead of most people his age, and honestly, he was. But when he finally sat down and ran the numbers properly, with inflation factored in, he realized his $40,000 had the purchasing power of closer to $32,000 compared to when he started saving a decade earlier. $8,000 gone, not spent, not lost to a bad investment. Just eroded, silently, by inflation outpacing his interest rate every single year. What hit him hardest wasn't the number. It was the realization that doing nothing had a cost he'd never been told about. That safe was relative, that there's no neutral position with money. You're either keeping pace with inflation or falling behind it. That's the point of understanding this. Not to panic, to act. Daniel didn't do anything dramatic after that. He didn't start day trading. He didn't move everything into crypto. He just reorganized what he already had based on a simple principle. Match the purpose of money to the right account. Here's that principle. Money has different jobs, and the job determines where it lives. Job 1, short-term stability, emergency fund. Bills due in the next 12 months, money you might need fast. This goes in a high-yield savings account, not a standard 8.5% account. A high-yield account, which as of recently has been offering anywhere from 4 to 5% annually. That's closer to matching inflation. Not beating it, but not bleeding against it either. Job 2, medium-term goals. Money you won't need for 2 to 5 years, a house deposit, a career transition fund, a specific target. This can go into I-bonds, short-term treasury bills, or a CD ladder. These are still low risk, still government-backed in many cases, but they offer rates that at least compete with inflation instead of surrendering to it. Job 3, long-term wealth. Money you won't touch for 5+ years. This is where broad market investing comes in. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned roughly 10% annually on average over the long run. Against a 3% inflation rate, that's real growth. That's your purchasing power going up, not down. That's the only category of money where you're actually winning the inflation race consistently. Most people have all three categories of money parked in one place, earning one rate because no one ever told them there was a difference. That's the mistake, and it's fixable. Here's the honest version of this. You don't need to become a financial expert. You don't need to pick stocks or time markets or understand everything about macroeconomics. You just need to understand one thing. Parking all your money in one place at one interest rate for years on end is not a neutral decision. It's a slow decision with a slow cost. 10 years from now, your savings will either have held their value or they won't. And the difference mostly comes down to whether you understood this one concept, inflation risk, before it was already too late to matter. That's not about getting rich. That's about not getting quietly poor while doing everything right on the surface. So here's your one action from this video. Go look at your savings right now. Find out what interest rate you're actually earning. Then ask yourself, is that money doing the right job for what I actually need it for? If you figure out the answer, come back and drop it in the comments. Tell me what you found and what you're changing, because the people who write it down are the ones who actually do it. If you want more videos like this, the stuff no one explains clearly without the noise, subscribe. Because this was just the beginning of what most people are getting wrong about money they already have.